there. Okay, we'd like to begin. Our second half starts with Nancy Reeder. Now, Nancy has hiked trails up and down and around, not only in this country, but everywhere else. She has a book that will shortly be published. I'm sure she'll tell you about it. And she's done a great deal on the Appalachian Trail. Now, the good news is we can listen to her stories. We don't have to brave the weather. We don't have to schlep a backpack and all of that stuff. We can just enjoy the trip. Nancy.
Thank you, Zane. Well, I'm not telling a trail story today, but I am going to share with you that for some time now, I've been going outside in the early morning to where our driveway is. It has the rock driveway, and I sit there on a padded board, and I dig up all the little plants that have grown up through the rocks. And I throw them in a bucket, and then after about 15, 20 minutes, that's the total amount of time, I dump it over the side of the mountain and I say, "Grow there." Now, I told my brother what I'd been doing, and he said, "Well, I just use Roundup." But it's become a time of Zen moment for me in the morning to greet my day. And I think it's why I like this story that comes from India and Pakistan. There once was a grass cutter named Wali Dad. He lived in a mud hut with jungles on one side and grass fields on the other. Every morning he'd go out to the grass field and cut the grass and the wonderful wild tall grass. And then he would put it into bundles and take it to the market. And there he would sell it for animal feed. Now the few coins that he earned, he would buy his evening meal and anything else he needed. But he always had a few coins left over. Now, he happily did this for many years. And then one day, he was old. And he had always put those extra coins in a clay pot and had pushed it under his bed. Well, he thought about those coins, and he was curious how many there were. When he looked, it was almost filled to the brim. He wanted to do something with them, but he had everything he needed. And then he had an idea. He went to the marketplace where the jeweler was and had those coins exchanged for a gold bracelet. Then when a merchant came by his hut, he stopped him and said, "Tell me, sir, who in all the world you've traveled is the most joyful and virtuous woman you know?" Oh, of course, that would be the princess of that's 2-3 days journey west of here. "Would you kindly, sir, take this little bracelet to her with my compliments from Wali Dad?" Well, the merchant did that, and when the princess saw it, "Oh, it's lovely. I would like to give something in return. You said his name was Wali Dad?" And she sent a camel loaded with fine silks. When Wali Dad saw it, "Oh, what will I do with all this finery?" Then he had another idea. "Merchant, who do you find is the most joyful and virtuous man?" "Oh, of course, that's the prince who is 3 days' journey east of here." "Take this to him, please, with my compliments, and also take some for yourself." Well, the merchant did that, and the prince saw it and said, "Oh, this is splendid. I'd like to give something in return. I'll give 12 of my finest horses." Now, the grass cutter Wally Dodd was out in the field, and he sees these horses come with the merchant leading them. He says, "Oh, it keeps growing worse and worse. Take 2 for yourself and take the rest to the princess of the West." Now the princess saw these horses, and she went to her father. And she said, "This man keeps sending me these gifts. His name is Wally Dodd. I don't even know who he is." And her father says, "Send something so magnificent that he cannot even match it." She sent 20 mules loaded with silver. When they came by Wally Dodd, he said, "Oh, no, take 2 of each, take 2 of each for yourself and take them to that prince of the East." Now, when the prince saw them, he went to his advisor. And his advisor said, "Oh, give something so monumental that it can never be matched." And he sent 20 camels and 20 elephants, all with precious gifts. And when the grass cutter saw them coming, he was out in cutting the grass, and the ground was vibrating, and he looked up and saw those animals. He said, oh, take 2 of each and take them the rest to the princess of the West. Now at that point, the merchant didn't want to do it. And he said, as he's heading out past them, "This is the last time." When the princess saw that and told her father said, "Okay, this man, this must be someone who really is wanting to be married. He wants to marry you. We will go and visit this great Wally Dodd." And they formed a couple days later, the merchant was leading them right to Wally Dodd's mud hut. And the merchant was thinking, oh. On the night before they would arrive, he left the camp and he went to Wally Dodd. And he said they were coming. And Wally Dodd said, I brought shame to myself, to you, the princess. What will we do? There's nothing to do. And the merchant went back to the camp. Wally Dodd left the hut and, "Goodbye, my hut. I'll never see you again." And he started walking down the road when he heard, "Why do you despair?" He looked up and there were 2 Peris. They're like angels. And he looked over and said, "Oh, I'm just a stupid old man and I can't bear my shame." And the one came over to him and said, "There is no shame within you. You may have work clothing that is poor, but in your heart you are a king." And she touched his shoulder, and he immediately had a beautiful robe on, a turban on his head, and sandals on his feet. And then the other one said, she pointed to his hut and then said, "Wally Dodd, go home. It is as it should be." And then they vanished. He looked around and he saw there was no hut, and there was this palace, and servants were coming out to greet him as if they knew who he was and what he needed, and they took him inside and they gave him a meal and a bed with pillows and cushions. And the next morning there were trumpeters up on the rafters, up on the top, and they were leading the way for the princess and her court to come to the castle. And when they came by, the merchant was leading them. And he was looking for the hut. And then he saw Wally Dodd coming out of that castle, and he thought, and he was stupefied. And then the Wally Dodd came up to him and whispered something in his ear, and he immediately went east. And when he arrived, And then they all went inside this palace, and everyone was taken care of. All their needs were met. Now the father, at one point, came up to Wali Dad and he said, "I understand you want to marry my daughter." "Oh, no, sir. No, I do not." Well, it was a number of days later, after these people were being treated by the servants and everyone was festivities going on, when the merchant, followed by the prince on one of his stallions and all of his family and the rest of his crew behind, they came right toward the castle. And when the princess saw the prince, it was as if they had planned this all many years before. And as they each talked together, maybe even before they were born, they knew that they would be one. Now, I could tell you they got married and everything was good, but it didn't quite happen that way. The two families got to know one another, and then it was time for them to go back to their home. And as they headed back, Wali Dad had just come from the field, and he had the sweetest, freshest grass as he waved goodbye to the two families, knowing they would be united at a later time. Now, some say one of the Peiris came back to Wali Dad and said, "Do you want your mud hut?" But we are certain of this, though. Wali Dad never sent any gifts to the princess or the prince ever again. And as for me, when I go out to my driveway in the morning tomorrow, and I dig up any of the weeds that have come up, I might be reflecting on Wali Dad, the simple grass cutter, and that beautiful, tall, wild grass. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, Josh will finish